The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, which took off from Kuala Lumpur on March 8, 2014, and subsequently vanished without a trace, remains one of the most perplexing and debated mysteries in aviation history. While there were many factors that contributed to the incident, one of the most curious and controversial elements of the case involves the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. The question of whether Captain Zahari's actions or involvement led to the aircraft's disappearance, and what role, if any, he played in this tragedy, has sparked extensive investigations, speculation, and media coverage. This article seeks to explore this case in depth by focusing on the role of the missing Malaysian pilot. Background of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was a scheduled passenger flight from Kuala Lumpur International Airport to Beijing Capital International Airport picked. The Boeing 777-200ER aircraft, registered as 9MRO, was carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members when it took off at 12:41 a.m. local time on March 8. The aircraft was expected to reach Beijing at 6:30 a.m. However, the flight would never reach its destination. At 1:19 a.m., the last communication from the cockpit was made, with First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid acknowledging a routine transmission from air traffic control. Shortly after that, radar contact was lost, and the aircraft's transponder, a device that communicates the aircraft's location to air traffic controllers, was switched off. The aircraft continued flying for several more hours, according to satellite data, but it eventually lost contact entirely. After a massive search that involved multiple countries and covered vast areas of the Indian Ocean, it was concluded that the plane had likely ended up somewhere along an arc known as the Southern Corridor in the southern Indian Ocean, far off the original flight path. Despite extensive efforts, wreckage from the plane, including parts of the wing, was found scattered on beaches along the western Indian Ocean, but the main wreckage, or the majority of the aircraft, had never been located. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. The pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53 years old at the time of the disappearance, was the pilot of Flight MH370. With more than 18,000 hours of flying experience, Zahari was an experienced and well-respected figure in Malaysia Airlines. He had been with the airline for more than 30 years and had been a captain for over 10 years. His career was generally described as exemplary, and he was known to be a competent, experienced, and well-liked individual among his colleagues. Zahari was also an enthusiastic proponent of aviation technology and had a reputation for being tech-savvy. He owned a flight simulator at his home, which later became a focal point in the investigation. The discovery that Zahari had engaged in flight simulator training for long-haul flights, including simulations that involved flying in the southern Indian Ocean, raised suspicions. Could he have been practicing for a flight that would go off course, or was there another explanation for his simulator activity? The investigation into Captain Zahari in the aftermath of the disappearance. One of the most significant areas of focus for investigators was Zahari's possible role in the incident. The theory that the captain might have intentionally taken the plane off course became the subject of intense scrutiny. Here are several key aspects of the investigation into Zahari. 1. The flight simulator investigators discovered that Zahari owned a personal flight simulator. This finding drew immediate attention, as it suggested that he had access to a platform where he could practice a wide range of flight scenarios, including ones that were not part of normal commercial aviation routes. The FBI was called in to analyze the data from the simulator, and it was revealed that some of the flights Zahari had simulated appeared to mimic the southern flight path that MH370 is believed to have. He followed after losing contact. Among the simulations, one in particular caught the investigators' attention. It was a simulated flight that mirrored the trajectory of MH370's final movements over the southern Indian Ocean. This led to theories that Zahari may have deliberately flown the plane into the ocean, taking it off course intentionally. However, it is crucial to note that there was no concrete evidence linking the flight simulator data to the flight's final path. The data did not definitively prove that Zahari had planned or executed a hijacking or deliberate crash. In fact, there were also simulations of the plane flying safely along the standard flight route, which suggested that the simulator was being used for general aviation practice rather than sinister personal life and mental health. Further scrutiny was applied to Zahari's personal life in the wake of the disappearance. Investigators delved into his background looking for any signs of stress, personal issues, or psychological factors that might explain why he would intentionally bring down the aircraft. Zahari's family and friends described him as a dedicated professional and a loving father. There was no indication that he was experiencing significant personal issues. However, in the aftermath of the incident, rumors began to surface suggesting that Zahari may have been dealing with personal problems, including marital issues, though this remained unconfirmed. Some experts speculated that the pilot's emotional state or psychological condition might have influenced his behavior on that fateful night. However, it is important to note that there was no definitive evidence to support this theory. Zahari had undergone regular medical checks and was cleared for duty, with no signs of mental health issues identified in the period leading up to the flight. 3. The final flight path of MH370, as reconstructed through satellite data, showed that the plane flew for several hours after losing communication with air traffic control. The data indicated that the plane made a series of turns and traveled a vast distance, suggesting that the aircraft was being flown deliberately, rather than experiencing a mechanical failure or emergency. 4. The hypothesis of a pilot suicide. One of the most widely discussed theories regarding the disappearance of MH370 is that Captain Zahari intentionally crashed the aircraft in a suicide mission. The idea behind this theory is that Zahari, for reasons that remain unclear, might have deliberately taken control of the plane and flown it off course, eventually bringing it down in the remote waters of the southern Indian Ocean. This theory is supported by several factors, including the deliberate nature of the flight's course deviation, the fact that the plane continued flying for several hours after losing contact, and the possible indications of Zahari's personal struggles. However, there is no definitive proof to support the pilot's suicide hypothesis, and the lack of a clear motive raises questions about the accuracy of this theory. 5. Counterarguments: mechanical failure or external factors. While the theory of pilot involvement is one of the most discussed, there are many who argue that the disappearance of MH370 could have been the result of an external factor or a mechanical failure. Some experts suggest that a catastrophic event such as a sudden depressurization of the cabin fire or an equipment malfunction could have incapacitated the crew and led to the plane flying off course autonomously. Moreover, there are theories that point to potential hijacking or interference from outside forces, such as terrorism or criminal activity. However, none of these theories have been substantiated, and no conclusive evidence has emerged to support them. The absence of distress signals and the steady course of the aircraft after losing contact with air traffic controllers further complicates these explanations. The ongoing search and inconclusive evidence. Despite years of searching, the investigation into the disappearance of MH370 remains inconclusive. The search area, known as the 7th Arc, was chosen based on satellite data that showed the aircraft's likely trajectory. In total, over 120,000 square kilometers of ocean were searched, but the wreckage found so far represents only a small fraction of the aircraft. In 2018, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau ATSB, which led the search, concluded that the aircraft's location could not be definitively determined, and the search was officially called off. However, the mystery remains unsolved, and new theories continue to surface regarding the cause of the disappearance. As for Captain Zahari, while he remains the subject of much speculation, No definitive evidence has emerged to suggest that he played a direct role in the aircraft's disappearance. His flight simulator, his personal life, and his actions leading up to the flight are all points of interest, but none of them provide a clear answer to the question of whether he was responsible for the tragedy. The disappearance of MH370 and the case of the missing Malaysian pilot, Captain Zahir Ahmad Shah, continue to be shrouded in mystery and speculation. Despite extensive investigations, the cause of the disappearance remains unknown, and theories surrounding Zahir's involvement persist without definitive evidence to support them. Whether the missing pilot intentionally crashed the aircraft, or whether some other factor was at play, will likely remain a topic of debate for years to come. The disappearance of MH370 has left a profound impact on the aviation industry, the families of those lost, and the public's understanding of aviation safety. The case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history, with no easy answers in sight.